Hi, this is the Fundamentals of Online Education, Planning and Application. Welcome back. In the last session, we looked at the overview of the newer learning theories, and in this session, we're going to look at some teaching approaches. The first one we're going to look at is known as peer instruction. Basically, this is a different way of teaching larger classes, and it was discovered by Harvard physics professor Eric Mazur in the 1990s. And while he was doing this, there were also others in the field who were researching large classes. One of them was Joe Reddish at the University of Maryland. He discovered basically that the lecture method of teaching did not work. And he realized that most of his students just stored information in short-term memory, and as soon as the exam was over, they forgot everything they had learned. And I also discovered this in my very own teaching. The following semester, the students basically didn't remember anything from the semester before. So basically what he found was that if two students were discussing the topic, and student A got the right answer and student B got the wrong answer, student A who got the answer right would be able to better convince student B of the right answer than the instructor. And this is because student A had just learned the concept and was familiar with the process of trying to figure it out, whereas the professor is an expert who actually went through the concept and the conceptual difficulties of the beginning learner a long time ago, and is now no longer able to recall what he went through to achieve understanding. And out of this came actually something called the flip instruction, or more commonly known as the flipped classroom. And this came out of Eric Mazur's work on peer instruction. And the flipped classroom came from the fact that you're actually flipping the class. Basically, what you're doing is the lectures that normally you would listen to in class becomes homework. And the problems that you work at home are now what you're going to be working on in the classroom. So learners in the classroom are actually working on problems and applying higher level thinking skills. And they are basically not passively listening to a lecture in the classroom, so they become very much engaged and active. And there are a lot of benefits to the flipped classroom. Some of them, as I mentioned, are that they are more engaged in the learning process, and they apply what they have learned from the video lesson, that means from the lecture that they had listened to at home. They can also review content. That means they can always go back and review the lectures that they have viewed. So if a concept was confusing to them, they can always go back and review it again. Learners are also getting personal help, meaning that when they get to the classroom, things that they didn't understand or could not figure out, now they can work on that and achieve understanding. And also, learners are learning from each other. And finally, the instructor is more of a guide than someone who's the provider of information. The next thing we want to look at is something called backwards design. This is an approach of designing a course which was created by Wiggins and McTighe. And it starts with learning outcomes. That means, what do you expect the learners to have learned at the end of the lesson? So you're going backwards from the end product to the beginning. So there are basically 3 stages in the design process. The first stage is to identify what it is that you want the students to learn and be able to perform at the end of the lesson. The second stage is evidence that will show that the desired outcome has been achieved. And the third stage is actually the planning of the lesson. And so when you plan the lesson so that the students will be able to produce the evidence and then show the desired outcome that has been achieved. So this is a short session, and in this session we looked at a few different teaching approaches. There are many more, of course, but I selected a few for you to look at. And just like the previous sessions, these are merely overviews. And in the next session, we will be looking at privacy and copyright issues. I'll see you soon.